Hello, and welcome to Leading Inspired Learning, a Strive podcast.
Welcome to Leading Inspired Learning, a Strive podcast. Today I get to welcome my lovely friends and colleagues into the hot seat. Lena again.
Yeah, hello.
You're like becoming a podcast regular.
I love it.
And Liz, back to the podcast. It's been a while for you.
It has been a while.
But
yeah.
you've been on the podcast before too.
Yeah.
So you're old pros.
We got this.
But we're talking food for thought today.
Mm-hmm.
We recently offered a PL session called Food for Thought that the two of you kind of co-created and constructed out of conversations we were having and hearing in the community around using food in sensory bins or for sensory experiences in program. And so the idea kind of came up. We talked a lot about it in our team meetings and evolved. And then through all the natural channels, got approved at PLC, offered the session, and then kind of things went a little sideways.
Derailed a little bit.
So let's talk about how we originally envisioned this session and kind of the process of the derailing that happened.
Yeah. So it started with a conversation between me and Kayla Bartlett. One day we were out in the resource center and we were talking about rice that she's using at home for her child. And Lena had also mentioned, like, I've been using the same rice at home for a very long time. And we're like, we have chickpeas and like garbanzo beans and lentils and things. And we used to have them in the resource kits for people to take and use at their centers. And then as we started to do research, we were directed towards Middlesex London Health Unit to talk with.
Yeah, well, I think it came up in PLC a little bit. So this idea went kind of sparked because we heard mixed reviews almost in the community around using food in sensory bins. Some people didn't, some people did. Some people, the ethical considerations we need to make in like food scarcity mindsets, things like that. So it kind of sparked a lot of questions and we brought those forward to PLC, Professional Learning Committee, to talk about with them, and they felt similarly. Everything that you had talked about with Kayla, with your own experiences, with your own children, in your own, like when you used to work in program. And PLC was like, we see that happening too. People are unsure, there are things to consider and they don't necessarily, educators don't always know kind of all lenses to consider things at.
It was also like, where's the line? If we're allowed to use flour and cornstarch and water and other things that are scarce on like families or even just on earth right now, it was like, how is that throwing water out every single day at the end of the day any different than using pasta for a month or two, dried pasta for a month or two in your sensory bin? As long as it's stored properly, not damaged, things like that. So it was kind of like a heated conversation because we're like, ethically, we could start food cupboards in your centers and have donations, or if like this is a big concern, you don't have to use food. Like it wasn't like you have to use it. It's the best option. It was just here's some ethical ways to use it because we thought we could continue to reuse it over and over again because it wasn't damaged, it was dried, it wasn't going to be used for consumption, it was strictly for sensory play.
And I think that's the main thing when we first decided to do this PL. Our intention was never to make it with like the intention of telling educators, yes, please use food. We knew we didn't want to sway the audience like yay for food, nay for food and sensory. We wanted to cover both the positives and the pros. But really, we wanted to talk about how can we make food sustainable, and our intention was to offer ideas on how to still use food in a sustainable way. And then once we actually started our research and we connected with MHLU, that's when things got derailed and we completely had to pivot.
So at the time, we were really fortunate. We had Middlesex London Health Unit representation on our Professional Learning Committee. And so at the time, Heather Bywaters was able to connect us with kind of the right people and start that conversation. And it kind of snowballed.
It did. So we connected with Claire, who I believe is a registered dietitian with MHLU, and she was the first to kind of draw our attention to food is not recommended in play for sensory
from a infectious disease perspective.
But the wording recommended was what stuck with us. Like, okay, so it's not recommended, but can we still do it?
And then then Claire continued to put us in touch with a health inspector who specifically works with childcare centers. And then that health inspector was able to kind of break that policy down for us and explain it to us. So although the start of the policy says we do not recommend food being used in play, that was the recommendation portion. But the second half of that policy was the hard line of if food is going to be used, it must be disposed of at the end of the day, which means single use, one time for one day, and then it's got to go.
Which then threw out the entire ideology around us being able to reuse and make it a sustainable resource for childcare centers.
Yeah, that is not sustainable.
Not at all. It's actually way worse,
right? Than we ever thought
it was.
Yeah.
And we kind of were taken aback. We had a moment. We took a day, actually. Probably a whole day. Yeah. We just kind of let ourselves crash out a little bit.
Yeah, we crashed out a little bit. We were like, this is not what we wanted. Now what do we do? We have to start from scratch and reconceptualize this whole idea because we were so passionate about this thing. And then it completely demolished us for a day. We just went, okay, we're going to crash out, be a little bit upset about it. And then we're going to regroup and figure it out.
Yeah. And then we started to brainstorm, okay, well, how can we still use the concept of food in play? And then also we realized that we need to get this message out there because we know there are childcare centers who already have policies against using food in sensory play, but we know that there are lots of organizations that still allow food to be used in sensory play. So we know that there are lots of educators using the food and not following this policy.
Right.
And so we kind of said, okay, well, this is important information. Now that we know,
we need to share it.
We need to share it. And
which my first instinct was like, la, 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 la. If I didn't hear it, I don't know about it. Like,
I don't blame you.
I wish I never knew this information because now it's like, I mean, there was a few illuminating aspects to that too. And it's just one of those things are just like, oh my goodness, like I wish I didn't know because I want to keep doing this practice.
Yes,
so like one of those being the snow thing we learned about.
Oh yeah, any water used in childcare centers has to be potable water, meaning that it has to come from a tap that is drinkable. So it can't come from a hose, it can't come from snow. So if you're taking snow from outside, technically it cannot come inside, even though they're outside eating snow. Anyways,
we know that,
they're covered in it, but the second you bring it inside, it becomes a no.
Which is wild because I think every program I've ever set foot in my entire career has brought snow inside from outside in the sensory bins. Put food coloring or shovel different things that they're so interesting.
And
the
kids
children
love snow
love
inside because the whole thing about bringing outside inside is a big theme that we see that educators do because children find it so interesting. We're bringing leaves and sticks inside when they're supposed to stay outside.
Right. Yeah. So that was one of those things that I wish I could la.
Yeah, I know.
Because we're going to
upset a lot of people with this podcast.
I know.
But but
it's like it opened our eyes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was also the emotion that was in the room during the actual PL. I think we felt that across the audience. But then we were able to kind of bring everybody back and then really just focus on the pedagogy of using food in play. And trying to help them reframe, why are you using food in play? What is it that you're trying to develop? And we got to do a little make and take at the end of that PL, which I think really helped bring the mood back up with everybody because they got to create a little DIY starter kit and we were able to turn it around, which is good. But it definitely took time to get there. And then we also brought up the conversation of maybe there is now room for us to do some advocacy work.
Yes.
Maybe there's room for ECEs to advocate for using food and how can we actually make it sustainable. Obviously, we're not here to say that Ontario public health guidelines are not valid. There is a reason why they are there. They are helping infection control.
Absolutely.
But we also know that for sensory play, it is a supervised activity, and we know that it comes with supervision. And whether we're using food or non-food in sensory, we are discouraging mouthing or redirecting that when it's happening. We're getting rid of sensory play when it's contaminated visibly. So there's room for advocacy.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. And I think illuminating things, specifically the snow example.
Yeah.
The hypocrisy of it's okay they eat snow outside, but it's not okay they potentially eat the snow inside. Just it seems ridiculous.
It's like a double standard almost.
Right. Yeah. So it in those elements that feels like slightly ridiculous, and there has to be some advocacy. There has to be someone we can speak to and work with on the health unit side, on the infectious disease control side. And we came out of pandemic recently. So we recognize the importance of infectious disease control, and we don't want another pandemic to happen. No. We already get a million colds and bugs and sniffles and pink eye and hand, foot, mouth.
This season was rough.
Right?
Yeah.
We know that, and we don't want children to get sicker than they already are.
Yeah.
So we understand the importance of the health unit needing to have policies, but there are some that just seem outrageous.
Well, even now, Play-Doh still should be individualized. So that was another thing we learned.
Yeah, Play-Doh.
Which wasn't a thing before COVID, but then COVID happened and everything was individualized, which totally makes sense. And now Play-Doh again is supposed to be individualized and thrown out at the end of the week, which makes sense. It dries out. Yeah, kids are putting their hands in it. That makes sense. But
so the other thing about Play-Doh that we learned,
heat treated flour, and you can't do it at home.
So I feel like I learned this too late, like kind of embarrassingly late in life, that the reason you can't eat raw cookie dough isn't because the eggs, which is what I thought.
So, yeah,
it's because of the flour.
Oh, I learned that because of this PL. So full disclosure.
So even more embarrassingly late.
Honestly, and I honestly thought it was like one thing, and it depends, like how much you have to eat of raw flour to get these things. Like, is it literally just 1 teaspoon, or is it like a whole batch of cookie dough?
Yeah. Which I've eaten cookie dough in my lifetime. Yeah. Here we are. But now they make that Pillsbury edible cookie dough, like safe to eat raw.
Yes. So good.
Savior.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's because of the flour.
Yeah.
And so you have to buy heat treated flour or
taste safe. It's
taste safe.
We looked it up earlier.
Yeah, just it's an alternative taste safe flour, or it can be labeled as heat treated flour.
Can folks heat treat it themselves?
No. From what we've learned.
So what we learned too is that it's very specific to your health inspector too, as well. So in each region, I guess, they have their designated health inspectors, and some of them will tell a child care center that they can heat treat. But that's because the decision comes from they've checked out their oven, how hot it gets. They have other policies in place, like they're actually checking the temperature of the flour. So there's some centers that can and some that cannot. You have to refer to your local health inspector, and they will let you know if you can treat in home or in center, or if you cannot.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we've learned. So yeah, you can heat it, and it needs to reach, I believe it's 170
something like that
degrees Celsius.
Don't quote us.
Yeah. So about 350 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Is what you need to heat treat it, or you can microwave it for 2 to 5 minutes.
Right.
But whether or not that's allowed in center, you have to refer to your health inspector, and they'll let you know.
But purchasing the taste safe or heat treated flour is
okay.
And that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is like the highest recommendation from any we looked up multiple policies or multiple provinces, cities, trying to like align them and see what was similar, what was different, and especially when we were researching the PL.
Yeah.
But across pretty much all of them, it says it has to be heat treated flour.
Yeah. What about commercial Play-Doh?
Commercial Play-Doh is different. Apparently, it doesn't hold as much moisture for one thing, and it also is a different kind of flour. It's probably heat treated. Commercial heat treated.
Yeah. So it's allowed. Commercially purchased Play-Doh is allowed, but homemade Play-Doh has to be made with heat treated.
Yeah.
And still individual per child.
Yep.
And still thrown out at the end of the week.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Now it's making it seem like Play-Doh's more hassle than it is good.
Yeah. There's even like through this research, we were reading threads of like some child care centers banning the use of Play-Doh because of this. Because for some child care centers, they are not able to heat treat in center, and then it's too expensive for them to buy heat treated flour because it is more expensive than typical flour. And so now we're seeing child care centers that aren't even using Play-Doh, and that literally breaks my heart. It's like, what do you mean? And I feel like that's a big part of like, okay, we need to advocate from this piece too in particular, because now it's kind of like weighing out the pros and cons.
So you saw something really cool this morning though when we were looking up some stuff that you can use cornstarch in a Play-Doh recipe. Never tried it.
We've never tried.
It'll have to be an experiment in the resource center, but that was something that someone had recommended because cornstarch doesn't hold the same bacteria that flour does.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to try some new recipes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So Play-Doh's affected food and sensory bins and snow.
Yep.
Outdoors in. I also wanted to think about most of the time when I see food, rice, lentils, chickpeas, whatever, used in a sensory bin, it's used as filler.
Yes.
For other materials to go in. So like a little jungle setup goes in the sensory bin with lentils.
Yeah.
What I think you talked about it a little bit. Like, what is the intention of using food?
Yeah.
What do you recommend for this like filler that is safe?
Yeah, so we came up, like Liz and I came up with a lot of ideas and alternatives, which we provided at the PL for everybody's like make and take sensory kit, because we did talk about how a lot of the time the food is just used as a filler. It's not because of an interest in lentils or rice specifically. I mean, it could be in some cases, but majority of the time we really are just using it as the filler. So help me remember some of the things we use.
Water, obviously.
Which we should talk about after, remind me.
Yes. We did sand, which also we need to touch on.
Okay.
Shredded paper. Shredded paper is a great one. You're already shredding a bunch of documents at work, probably weekly.
Yeah.
You might as well take that, which is already going into the recycling, and use it for a day in the sensory bin. It still has to be disposed of at the end of the day, but either way, it was going in the garbage.
Yeah.
Pluffle's a great one.
Right.
I would refer to your health inspector when implementing this, though, because the information we got is if it's not able to be sanitized, it cannot go in a sensory bin longer than one day. Yeah. So Pluffle is not retired.
Recycled tires. Also retired tires. And recycled
exactly.
Tires, yeah.
And it's this really cool. Like, it moves on its own.
It's kind of creepy.
It kind of looks like bugs. It's very interesting. I don't love it, but everybody else loves it.
Yeah. We did cut up fabric.
Yep, because you can launder that.
Yeah, and we actually like provided some laundry bags so that you can wash it at your site very easily. We provided like cut up plastic straws, which is a crazy one to think about, right? Because of the whole like banning plastic straws because of the environmental impact of them. However, in this scenario, we were saying you can actually wash plastic straws, fill up your sink with some water, some bleach, dish soap, and soak them in there, dry them off. They're good to reuse again. We suggested like bottle caps, and we were talking also about how you can actually involve some of the families in this project too. So kind of putting out the note like, hey, help us collect bottle caps. We want to use them in sensory
scraps
bins.
Of fabric,
or
like
scraps
of clothes that you can't donate or you can't sell, that are stained or whatever, but they're still clean. You can cut those clothes up and use them in sensory bins.
How fun is it for like preschoolers to like each bring in like their own t-shirt from home and then kind of as an activity and take scissors and start cutting it up. You're practicing fine motor to cut, and then they get to all throw it in and put it in a big sensory bin. So we were trying to like come up with ways of how you can make this still really exciting and fun, involve your community, involve your families in this. Pool noodles, right? We cut up a lot of pool noodles and we had that.
We said ice, obviously, but it has to be ice from your taps and your freezers, not from outside, which is unfortunate.
Right.
We said beads, like for older kids, obviously, beads. The silicone beads are great because they're washable, and they're also more than likely taste safe because they're not like wood with paint or things like that. You can do buttons. Any kind of loose part really could be a filler.
Right.
Yeah.
So back to water.
Yeah.
So it has to be potable water. We have talked about that. But then do we still run into these kind of like ethical and moral dilemmas that we talked about with food, knowing
the state of the world?
Yeah.
It's really hard because water is such a great sensory play activity and children love it. But it also ends up being that ethical dilemma of AI is using so much water right now. We are in a severe crisis that we are going to run out of water.
Well, and we know like the indigenous communities like the water scarcity, how important water is. It just, if we know it's a single use.
Yeah. Is it then ethically okay to use and program?
And that's not, I guess, not for us to decide.
Yeah.
And that's for each individual educator as part of their own pedagogy to decide what and how they decide. They learn these and
to use these.
Yeah, exactly. Learn to use these things and learn to consider all of the aspects. It seems so straightforward. Like, put water in a sensory bin, duh.
Yeah. And then clean it after. Great. Gone end of day, super easy to clean.
Yeah,
but
we've all done it. I filled sensory bins with water, absolutely, and not even thought about it.
No,
but this is the thing. I think this is the food for thought. We're asking you to just think about it.
Yeah, think a little bit harder about what we're introducing to children, how we're introducing our relationship with certain items to children, because putting water in a sensory bin or a pool is the same thing. Yeah. Like, it's then becoming a plaything as opposed to like a life source. Right. And it's not that I'm saying don't use it, because it is very important for children to engage with water and things, but it just becomes a more ethical conversation or thought or reflection that you need to do. But
Yeah. And we know that there are lots of families struggling. And I was saying too, it's not even just the families, like even as educators too, right? We know a lot of educators are spending a lot of their own money to put back into their classroom. So is it really sustainable for you to consistently be buying bags and bags of rice or pasta or corn or what have you to be adding into your sensory bin? Like you matter too.
Yes.
And I think it is a lot about that relationship building, like knowing your own children that are in your care, knowing their families, the backgrounds that they come from. Because it's also, there's lots of cultural considerations that we talked about in the PL too, that there are lots of cultures where it's discouraged to play with food, and that can be a concern for some families. It can be seen as disrespectful. But then there are also lots of cultures that encourage handling food with your hands and exploring it and playing with it. And so what if you have a classroom where you have children that come from both cultural practices? Then how do you navigate that? And we talked about that too in the PL. We had a whole slide about like navigating tough conversations. And the important thing is always letting families know that their child has a choice, that they have a choice at the end of the day. If they're not comfortable with them engaging in a certain type of play, that you are also there to offer alternatives too. And making it known that, yes, we may use a lot of food in sensory play, but we do lots of sensory play that builds the same skills, that works on the same type of development, but just not using food, right? And kind of making your pedagogy known to families. And then you kind of talk about how important documentation is, and you can prove that to them through that. So yeah, we covered a lot.
We did.
In that
really
PL, but it was great
because we had people from all backgrounds, right?
I love that. And on all sides of the kind of the spectrum of food use. Yeah. What about food scraps?
So Kayla Bartlett actually brought up, like, why don't we use peels and things like that in the sensory bin? That'd be a great idea. And like you can store them in Ziploc bags in the freezer or in the fridge if they're not being used that day. And when we connected with the health inspector, he said no. Because as soon as you put it, as soon as it's off or it's been touched or used, it then becomes contaminated and needs to be thrown out right away. If you're not using it the same, you can use it the same day, you just can't use it longer than the same day.
Yeah.
So it can't go into a fridge or a freezer to use later. It has to be used the same day.
So if your cook or dietary planner is peeling 700 oranges that day, you can use those 700 orange peels in your sensory bin that day. And they go in the garbage.
And they go in the garbage, but they were going in the garbage
or compost
anyways, right? Most centers have compost now. And if you don't, you can also start your own compost as long as it's not on the yards. But we learned that they can use it as long as it's same day. And like you can do lots of things with peels. Like I remember when we were little, we used to use peels for like stamping and stuff. The potatoes in particular, we no longer do that obviously because of food scarcity. But like using apple, like scissors and apple skins, like there's a lot of things you can use and like support development with just using apple skins or orange peels, carrots.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that we touched on in the PL2 was how to incorporate playing with food, but now during meal times, so that the intention is that the food is being consumed. Yeah. And we talked a lot about like collaborating with your on-site dietary aide or cook so that you can plan these things out with them. If you know that there's going to be like a peelable fruit for snack that day, kind of make your intention known. So we did like touch on how to play with food, but specifically at meal times. So doing things like maybe being able to get, like the children safe cutting and chopping, cutting sets. Yeah. So like maybe bringing that into your room during mealtime and having them prep their own snack. Just lots of different things like making different shapes on their actual plates. That was something that the registered dietitian from Middlesex Health Unit actually sent us, was like food art at your actual meal. So you're still getting to explore like the textures, the scents, the colors of food, but it's intentional and it's at mealtime. So they're consuming it at the end.
So it kind of covers both bases of if the interest in what you're learning about is food related, there are ways to do it.
100%.
Yes. You just have to take all these considerations into mind. And also if you are just using it as filler, then to consider what the intention is and is there another material that's washable, cleanable.
Yes.
So it doesn't seem like all is lost.
No, definitely
not. I think just like the traditional way of how we're all used to using and seeing food. So even for us now in the resource center, Liz, at the beginning you were talking about how we had dried rice and chickpeas and whatnot in some of our resource kits. So we've now gone ahead and removed all of those. And now we're even exploring like what can we now replace these items with in these kits.
Because they were loved. Like, people did really enjoy using them, right? So,
but what we had them in there with the intention of them being a filler. Like the kits that are coming to my mind are like our safari kit, our jungle kit.
Yeah.
You don't really need rice and chickpeas in there.
Right.
So it's now this PL is now allowing us to now think deeper about, okay, what are some alternatives that we can use? There obviously could be like a higher upfront cost now when you're looking at these alternatives, but the intention and the hope is that it's a one-time big cost, or, you know,
in long term it won't be as expensive to
maybe not one time, but you're using it more frequently because it can be washed and it can be sanitized and used over and over again. So
the one thing that can't be sanitized though is sand.
I was just gonna say. Now what about sand?
So sand outside can stay there all year, every year, from what we understand. As long as it's raked and you're following those policies, it's good. However, the second you want to have sand inside, it has to be a specific type of indoor play sand, and it has to be disposed
silica
free and weekly disposal, or monthly.
So is this like the bags of play sand that you buy?
Yeah, you can get
Lowe's?
like the boxes at Lowe's that say like play
okay.
sand. It has to be that one.
Well, not Lowe's. Lowe's isn't anymore. Home Depot or Rona.
You have to make sure that it's silica free, because some sands have silica, like kinetic sand. You can't use in programs because it has silica in it. Which is something we also learned. We also had kinetic sand in our kits.
Yeah, and we had to remove
it because it has silica in it. We don't want, like, that doesn't make sense to be offering to childcare centers or educators to use in program when technically they can't. So, yeah. We're currently researching alternative recipes for kinetic sand, but they're not coming up short because everything uses borax or slime-based kinetic sand. So, very interesting.
Yeah. Again, I think sand is another place for like that advocacy piece, because that seems really silly to be able to reuse your sandbox outside. For years and years and hundreds of children through your program and
nature.
And like, nature, like cats.
Animals. And I know
leaves, rotting leaves, like plants, like it happens.
Oh, yeah.
Like we break them out. Like we rake them out, of course, but like,
so why can't that same rule apply to
indoors?
Being indoors.
To not have to waste that much sand.
Yeah, and like cost that much, because sand is not cheap.
No.
Like, and replacing that every week for 1 to 10 rooms is crazy.
Yeah.
We learned a lot.
Seems like there's question everything.
The moral of the story is research everything before you do it, because apparently you can be very wrong.
Nothing is safe.
No.
Not even kinetic sand.
Not even kinetic sand. Not even water.
Not even water. Oh my goodness. So what would your kind of overall message be then to educators who are looking and considering really sensory play, I guess, and how to enhance their sensory play?
I guess my main message would be to just really think about your pedagogical intent behind your sensory play. That's really what helped me like shift my thinking, is trying to focus on what the actual interest is, what are the skills that you're, developing through this type of play, and then kind of use that to help you find alternatives to using just food. And you don't have to take this on your own either, right? Like involving your families in it, involving the children, because they will have their own ideas too. Because it can be a little bit daunting to think about, like, well, how am I going to collect enough of bottle caps to fill an entire sensory bin for preschoolers? This is going to take ages. It doesn't need to be something that you take on your own. You can kind of make it like a center-wide thing where you're collecting these recyclable materials and then dividing them up amongst one another, involving your parents in that again. So it's a team effort, and I hope that this doesn't like really discourage others from doing sensory play, because we obviously felt that when we first learned about this. So my main message is don't be discouraged. Just try to just reframe your thinking and why you were using food, and try to go from there and researching like the alternatives that you can use.
Yeah.
So
I completely agree. I think it's important to reflect on your own like pedagogy personally, and how you want to interact with materials in the space, and how you want children to interact with the materials. now and in the future. If you want to show them how to be responsible and how to care for things, then you have to model that through what you're giving them to play with and things like that. So I agree with not being alone. You have a team behind you at your centers most of the time, supervisors, coworkers. You also have people like the resource center or the mentor.
You two are here to help.
Yeah, like if you have questions or need conversation, like we are here to have those conversations. But don't feel like if you don't know, you can't do it.
Yeah.
If you don't know or it doesn't work, then you have alternatives. You can do the research. Take your time. Don't feel like it has to be rushed or it has to be done today. Take the time with it. Talk to your families, talk to the community that you're working in, because that is also going to completely impact your own pedagogy, but how you're interacting with things in the classroom.
When I think about how far this has come and then the conversations that happened that you shared with me at the PL session, I think a lot of folks didn't understand or know why certain rules were in place.
Yeah.
So my kind of biggest takeaway is to encourage educators to ask questions.
100%.
Ask the health unit the questions. Ask your leader, your director, whomever the questions. Because I know you were saying some said, oh yeah, we have this, we don't use food as a policy, but I didn't know why. I didn't know if that was because
the director
didn't like it, or something happened sometime. I didn't know why. So ask why.
Yeah.
Like figure out the root of it.
Advocate for these things. Like if you're like, hey, this doesn't feel good to me, why are we doing it this way?
Yeah.
Then you have those open conversations. They're going to be difficult conversations, but I think they're important to have, especially if you feel so strongly about something being used or not used in program, because your perspective is important and it's going to influence children's perspectives, families' perspectives, coworker perspectives. So
yeah. It's those help me understand
exactly
or phrases we want to ask to help to your leader or your director. Help me understand why I'm not allowed to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it a health unit rule? Where is it? And for those leaders, helping them to be able to articulate these rules, because so many times in our profession, there are so many rules.
Yep.
Sometimes those are inherited rules that aren't actually written 100%. Down anywhere. And so is this an inherited rule? Is it because someone feels strongly one time and then that's become the norm? Or is this an actual rule for a reason? Well, I think we just tip of the iceberg, this whole thing.
100%. Yeah.
I feel like every time we talk, we uncover a little bit more around this topic, around sensory play, the use of food, the food for thought. So we're going to continue these conversations and continue researching. And, I do hope that folks use you two as a resource. That's what you're here for, as our resource center specialists.
Yeah.
If they have questions or aren't sure where to start looking. Yeah. You've been doing a lot of this research for a lot of months now. Yeah. So you're a good place to start. Also, your local health unit
yes, 100%.
is a really good place to start too.
And they'll be able to direct you in the right way.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. Thanks. It was so lovely to chat with you with mics in front of our faces.
Yes.
And be sure to use all those sticky and fun resources.
We will, don't worry.
Thanks so much for listening. You can connect with us on Instagram at Leading Inspired Learning Pod or on our website at striveswo.ca/podcast. I would love to have you tell a friend or colleague about this podcast. Thanks again for listening. Please join us next time.